Let's go to London and speak with our security and defence editor, Deborah Haynes, who joins me now live. And Deborah, huge developments overnight. There have been some responses from the UK side, the Prime Minister putting out a statement, but also we're getting this very clear sense from the UK that they want to make it clear that they weren't directly involved in any way in these strikes that took place overnight.
Yes, you'll remember there's been a lot of discussion in the days leading up to what happened overnight as to whether or not a British base in Diego Garcia would be used as a staging post for these B-2 bombers that have been deployed by the Americans against the Fordo nuclear facility and also Natanz. And it seems that those aircraft didn't come to Diego Garcia. They flew, it's been reported, a 37-hour round trip to drop the ordnance on the targets. And so that would mean that the British maybe were saved the embarrassment of being asked and having to say no if they aren't fully on board with taking out these targets. There's been a lot of discussion over the last few days over what the UK position is about the legality of the operation that's taking place. It is a nuanced position and it's ultimately a political decision, but maybe the Prime Minister was saved from having to make that decision. However, he is not saved from the fact that the UK is a key ally of the United States, and now British targets as well as American targets will of course be on a heightened state of alert for any retaliatory action by Iran outside of Israel. That was a state that they were already in. I was speaking to a source earlier in the week who was saying to me that military bases they've been bolstered. We know we've had more jets being put in our site at Cyprus RAF Akrotiri, and now you can imagine that maybe there will be more British assets moved forward to try to bolster defences. But clearly from the British Prime Minister, again, calling for de-escalation, saying to Iran they need to come and negotiate. But this is a moment of maximum risk. It's a scenario that has been war-gamed by governments for years now, the potential for America to get involved in a bombing campaign with Iran. There's also been details that's been reported in the New York Times as to exactly what the scale of the operation was on the American side. They're saying that there were 6 B-2 bombers that dropped a dozen of these bunker-busting 30,000-pound bombs on the Fordo nuclear enrichment site. And then submarines were also used. They launched TLAM cruise missiles against the facilities at Natanz and Isfahan. And the New York Times is saying that another 2 of these bunker-busting bombs were also then dropped on Natanz. So a huge amount of firepower to target these facilities. And clearly the question is not just what the retaliation might be, but whether or not they've been effective, whether or not they really have managed to degrade Iran's ability to enrich uranium and, as the Americans and the Israelis allege, accelerate ambitions to build a nuclear bomb.
Yeah, certainly on the Iranian side, officials there have been trying to downplay the damage done very much soon after the attacks were launched. They put out statements to their local press saying that only the entrance and the exit, for example, had been damaged. There's also a bit of news circulating that perhaps they had moved many of the centrifuges and the material out of these facilities. But as you say, we still have to wait and see. We're only just a few hours since those series of attacks on the nuclear sites were launched, and we'll have to wait and see what the actual damage that has been done. But when I've been speaking to the Israeli intelligence and military community, they've said to me that the United States has tested these bunker buster bombs, in places like Texas, for example. They know that they work, but it's still up in the air, and especially when the Iranians are, trying to muddy the waters and putting these sorts of statements out, no doubt speaking directly to a domestic audience to try and downplay this attack.
Yes, and this is the first time that these bombs have been used in combat. And like you say, there have been multiple tests and experiments to see whether it would work. And the Americans have been working on this exact plan for years now. And they are very, when you speak to Americans, they sound very confident that they believe they have got the capability to get into this mountain. The actual Fordo facility, it's under about 80 to 90 meters of mountain and enforced concrete. And these weapons, we're told, are the only ones that have the ability to reach that far. But if it's correct that the Iranians, lots of people were anticipating the potential for this strike to happen, given that everyone could see the aircraft moving towards the targets. If they have moved a lot of that enrichment capability out of the site, then clearly it's not been completely degraded. But like you say, there's still so much unknown about all of this and what will come next. And another key thing to look at is what Iran's allies might do. Vladimir Putin was very clear over the last few days that he warned against strikes, against this exact sort of scenario, strikes by America against Iran's nuclear facilities. Iran and Russia are key allies. Russia needs the regime to help support its actions that it's doing in Ukraine. All of these crises are interconnected. Will Russia feel that it needs to actually get involved now and give more support to Iran at its hour of need, which would then put Russia in direct confrontation with the United States? So it's a hugely high-risk move here by America. Clearly, they feel that they had to take this step. But, for example, the UK and other allies here in Europe, they will be holding their breath and watching what happens next.